Hello there. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me on the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast. If we're new friends, my name is Denise Alvarez. I get the pleasure of hosting you here every episode, typically every week. And just in case you are new here, I'm going to quickly introduce myself so you know who's on the other side of the microphone. And then we're going to jump in so that you can meet my new friend, Joni Gerard. All right, as I said, my name is Denise, and through my business, Storm Lily Marketing, I get to help dream-chasing horse business owners like yourself to see clearly through the marketing overwhelm so you can create a cohesive plan for your social media, your website, and your email marketing, one that's going to turn your online audience into your customers. Now, I do that through one-on-one coaching, as well as website design and website copywriting. And then, of course, here on the podcast, and I have some educational resources online as well. My heart truly is to help you as an equestrian business owner to be out doing more of what it is that you love to do, whether it's in the barn, the arena, behind the lens, behind the computer, creating the goods, wherever you are and however you're serving the equestrian world. My heart is to help you do more of that. And so especially here on this podcast, you will get a mix of step-by-step strategies, essential how-tos, and entrepreneurial mindset shifts that will help you not only see what's possible for your business, but I'm also here to guide you through that process so you can make it happen. And so today on the podcast, I'm going to introduce you to another new friend, a founder and equestrian entrepreneur, and I actually met her at Equine Fair in April of this year in Ohio. And I know that up until now, you've met a few other friends that I was able to meet there, and I'm so very grateful. It was such a good trip of connections. Now, on the very last day of the event, I stopped at a booth called Giddyup Getaway, and I learned that essentially they are the AirBnB for the horse world. And frankly, I thought it was brilliant. And I know that for many of you, you're hearing this and hopefully you're going to head to her website after you meet her and learn more about the heart behind the business and what is possible, because it's just the opportunity there that she saw is really, really neat. And so of course, I stopped and visited with her and asked about her story and how she started that business. And what I love is that she saw a problem, she experienced a challenge, and she created a business to address it. You're going to hear Joni talk about how what she's doing with Giddyup Getaway is not in her normal area of expertise. Yes, she has been in the horse world for a long time, but developing websites and marketing and advertising in this way is not necessarily her expertise. But she saw a problem, she experienced a problem, and she saw a solution that she could create, and she took that opportunity to do something about it. And I know that for many of you who are listening, you may have a similar story, or you may have a similar story at one point because you have an idea in your mind of something that you would like to do. And maybe you've been thinking you couldn't do it because you don't feel like you're the expert in that field. Or maybe you're thinking, I have an expertise to share, but people don't know that about me yet. There may be something there that's holding you back. And so I want you to meet Joni to see what's possible, to see some mindset tips that she has for you, some things that she has learned. Because while her business has just launched this year, it's actually been more than 2 years in the making. And she has been an entrepreneur for even longer than that. So you're going to hear Joni honestly share about the journey and some things that she has learned about starting a business that's outside of your expertise. And so wherever you are in your equestrian entrepreneurial journey, I know that the insights that Joni is sharing are going to encourage you and are going to help move you to action, because she's not just talking about how to build a website. She's actually not talking about that at all. It's things that she has done, such as putting boundaries around her equestrian business to protect herself while they're in this building phase. Because you and I both know it can be so tempting to be all in 24/7 when you're excited and passionate about a new project. And so she's going to share with you some things that she has done intentionally to stay healthy and to protect herself in that realm. So many things she's going to share. So I'm excited you're here, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Now, that being said, let me just say this. If you'll hear me actually even mention this episode in the interview with Joni, because I know this is an important piece, this idea of boundaries or self-care as an entrepreneur. And what does that look like? And especially in the horse world, because you're saying, Denise, I have care and management of horses that are a part of that. And it doesn't really fall within this picture perfect idea of boundaries. And I get that. And I know you have to consider that. So I want you to listen also to Self-Care for Equestrian Entrepreneurs, an episode I did with Aoife Simmons, and I will link to that in the show notes. So if you go to stormlily.com/144, you will see that in the show notes, or you can just head back a couple episodes on your phone and you will see that there. But you're going to be inspired and encouraged as you hear from Joni as well. So stick here, meet Joni, and then go and meet Aoife. All right. So let's dive in. I can't wait for you to meet her. Let's go. Okay, Joni, thank you so much for joining us here today on the podcast. I am so grateful for your gift of time.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's my pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, and this will be extra fun, I think, for listeners too, because you're still very on the ground level of building your business. But I thought it would be a really good conversation for that reason, because you're in a different place, a different mindset than some people are. But you're doing such really cool things. And so I want people to be able to hear that and learn from you. But before we dive into that, before we get into the practical things, would you tell us a bit about your background, a bit about your story? So we're obviously going to talk about how you founded Giddyup Getaway. What did that look like for you? I know that can be a big question. So let's just kind of talk through it, share a little bit about how you became the founder of this place that's basically the Airbnb for equestrians.
Absolutely. I absolutely love this story. So this business came into fruition basically out of one of the most heart-wrenching moments in my life.
Mm.
But before I get to that, let me just tell you, I grew up on a ranch in Central Florida. I'm fourth generation from the same county that I still live in. So I have really deep roots in Central Florida. I still have family all around. And I grew up on a cattle ranch. I didn't have any neighbors. I had cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents all living on the ranch together in different houses, but it was quite rural. So needless to say, I didn't have a lot of like neighborhood friends to hang out with. But what I did have is lots of horses. My mom was an absolute horse lover. She had been her whole life. And she taught me, how to take care of them, how to love them, how to communicate with them. And we just spent my whole childhood was basically with my mom and my animals, my horses, and just enjoying life. So fast forward many years, in January of 2022, my dad and I got a doctor's message that my mom had cancer everywhere in her body.
Mm.
And there was no treatment that was going to make this go away. And she was 80 at the time. We were shocked because her mother, my grandmother, lived to be 104. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to grow old with my mom. We're still going to be buddies forever. And, God just had a different plan. So we found out that she was really sick. And so I left my husband and my 3 young adult children who were still living at home at the time. And I moved in with my parents, which is about 30 minutes up the road, so that I could take care of my mom. My husband, super team player, he stayed home, cooked. The kids also were 18 and 16 and 16. I've got twin girls and they're very self-sufficient. So they were able to cook and clean and take care of my animals here at the house while I was taking care of mom. And, once I moved in with them, my mom and I were already best friends, but it was one of the most intimate experiences of my life. We ate together, we slept together, we showered together. And it was a beautiful moment that was wearing me out because I loved her so much and I wanted to take care of her and give her the best care possible, which is what she did for me when I was a child. And so I, during this process, started having back problems from picking her up and transporting and, moving her from the bed to the toilet, to the wheelchair, to whatever. Um, mom lasted a month. So it was a month of just intense exhaustion, physically and emotionally exhausting for me. Um, After she passed, I ended up on the couch for about 3 weeks waiting for back surgery. I couldn't stand for longer than 5 minutes or else I would just collapse. It was the most pain I've ever been in my life. So I'm sitting or I'm laying on the couch and I'm telling my husband, when I get pulled back together, I want us to giddy up and get out of here. Load up the horses and let's go. I need to get away. And so while I'm laying on the couch doing a whole lot of nothing, I don't like watching TV or anything like that. So I would read books and then I would research on the computer. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start planning a trip. I really want to go out west. I want to take my horses and I want to explore and see the world. And so I started trying to plan this trip and I found a directory of horse hotels listed by state. And so I started trying to contact those hosts and email and phone calls, and I wouldn't hear back from them. And it was tedious. I would have to look at the map and figure out where they are and related to where my road is, like my path and my journey that I was going to be on. And it was so time consuming and so frustrating that I literally stopped planning the trip and I started making a list of what I would want a website to do if I was going to, be planning a trip with my horses. And so definitely I use Airbnb. Definitely I've used Hip Camp in the past. And so I looked at those resources and I said, they're offering all these bells and whistles. Why can't equestrian people have just as many bells and whistles and things offered to them? So I started just taking those 3 weeks to write down my plans, my goals, what I would want the website to do, how I would want it to function. And that's kind of how Giddyup Getaway was started.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing even the very personal part of your founding story. Because again, as equestrian entrepreneurs that are listening to this, and we've talked about this on the podcast, our business and our personal lives are so intertwined. And so often people want to think that they're separate and really they're not. And especially when you're the business owner. And so even your founding story is very much connected to a personal story. And it really gives you more of from when you and I talked, I think a little bit more of a personal why behind what you created, right?
Yes.
But then what you did was see a need that you had and created something that you knew other people needed. Now, in that process, were you having conversations with other people in those 3 weeks, or it was really just you saying this is a
Right.
need, or were you going, let me talk to other people and see if this is something that others would use?
Well, I was a Facebook user, and so I joined some Facebook groups to help me plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me a really good pulse that other people were having the same issues with trying to locate horse layovers. They were having issues with saying, well, this one isn't safe, or this one advertised something different than how it was whenever I arrived there. And so there was a lot of concerns that people were having. And I thought, I can really alleviate a lot of these concerns that people have, like having a review system. So if you have a bad guest that maybe doesn't clean up after their horse and leaves you a mess, that a review was going to follow them around, and the next host is going to know, I may or may not want to accept this person. So being on the Facebook groups really gave me a pulse for what people's concerns were, what their issues were. And I think I've addressed almost all of them with our first launch, which was April 1st. We do have some more bells and whistles that are coming up in the future. but we have a super solid foundation for people to be able to use the platform now. The review system's in place. So yeah, I think the Facebook groups really helped a lot for me to
Okay.
know
Yeah.
what we want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's something we talk about too here on the podcast is listening to our audience and knowing who your audience is. So how would you define or how did you define at that time? Like who is your audience, your ideal audience that you were building this for?
Right. So there are so many different groups of people that are traveling with their horses. And the
Mhm.
more I stay in this position with Giddyup Getaway, the more different groups are coming to me. So I've been contacted by the Fox Hunting Association, and a representative of the association, and she told me, when we have a fox hunt weekend, we run out of spaces. Can you help us find more hosts? And I'm like, absolutely. The high school rodeo, the barrel racing association, team pinning, all the rodeo type people. I just was in contact with someone last week, and I'm going to start advertising in their journals and magazines to try to show those viewers and those people traveling with horses all over the USA. We're going to give you some more options. Who else have I spoken with? Of course, the plaid horse, the hunter jumpers, the show circuits. I've got a contact with the plaid horse. I've got an advertisement coming out next month. That'll be my first print ad that I'm excited about.
That is exciting.
Yes. And then I made contact with the Equine Network. So I've been contacted by quite a few people, different associations that are traveling with their horses. And the biggest group that I see there are thousands of people who are literally enjoying life sitting on the back of their horse. They're exploring trails. They're going away for long weekends. They're packing out and going in the woods and coming back out 4 days later. I've got an aunt in the state of Washington that does that. And I just think that's so cool. I want to do that too. So those are the people that Giddyup Getaway is designed for those folks.
Okay, that was my question, who you designed it for. And then, of course, and that's the thing as small business owners, right? We often think that we can provide one thing and it solves everybody's problems. But what we do is muddy the waters with our messaging and with what we're providing when we do that. And so you created this with a specific audience in mind, but that doesn't mean when the associations come your way that you're like, no, this won't work for you. It's new opportunity and you absolutely have a new audience to serve and, can point people in the right direction. And eventually they can probably start filtering by those things. I would guess, I'm just guessing,
Yes. Yeah.
that you maybe have that in mind. So tell me a bit, Joni, about the timeline for people that are like, okay, how in the world did she go from idea, concept, laying on the couch, making notes, dreaming, planning to 2 years later, launching something like this? Now, and let me also clarify, if I remember correctly, this is not an app. It's a
Right.
it's a website, and then people can save it to their phone, which I'm sure you provide directions on the website of like, here, this is how you save it. So it's very easily accessible from your homepage of your phone as if it were an app.
So I'm probably never going to make this an app, and I'm going to tell you why. I limit the functionality whenever I squeeze this huge big website and all of its functions into an app on the phone. And then the other side of that is Apple takes 30% of your income. And I'm not 100% sure on that, but once I heard 30%, I'm like, yeah, I'm not even going to waste my time right now because I've got so much invested in this platform. I don't want to shave off filters and functions to make it fit into an app. I want it to still be robust. And so that's why I did a website instead of an app. I don't want to share income with Apple, especially 30%, because I'm trying to keep this as affordable for people to use as possible. So, hosts pay 10% after a completed reservation. Most stalls are going to be $25 or $30 a night. So they're paying Giddyup Getaway, $3, which for all of the function and the software and functionality and advertising that they're getting, that's a super good deal. So I want it to be a blessing to people, not a burden. So I'm trying to keep all of the fees at a minimal. So that's why we don't have it as an app. But I did want to go back and tell you, when I started 2 years ago, well, after my back surgery, I got cleared to, get back to work and everything after a couple of weeks, which was awesome. I started doing my research and trying to find people to build this website. I couldn't use a platform that was pre-built, like say ShareTribe, because this is more complex than HipCamp and Airbnb because people have to add a human site and a horse site in one cart, or they may need one human site and three horse sites, three stalls, depending on how many horses you have. So because I needed that flexibility, and as it wasn't just one thing going in the cart, I couldn't use an out of the box website. So this website is built from scratch, and it's totally owned by my husband and I. So we don't have to worry about things changing and messing up its functionality either.
Yeah.
The first people I hired, I worked with them for, I'm going to say eight months, maybe. I ended up hiring the wrong people, made a huge mistake.
Oh,
They made a lot of promises. Of course, they had a contract and everything, but my background I was a teacher, and then I'm a real estate broker still. I still run a real estate company here. So I'm not a technical person. I'm not a website person. I know how to use them, but all the ins and outs and the language I've been learning as I go. So, I had basically ended up losing like $30,000.
oh my.
And when I had a website, but it did not have a strong enough foundation to where I could use third parties. It was just going to crash every time more than like 5 people were on it at a time. So I'm like, this is not acceptable. So I hired another company out of California called Crea Inc. And they built me a super solid foundation for this website. It can scale, it can grow. I can add things to it, add functionality, and it's going to function like like it's supposed to. Now, it was quite a bit more expensive than the first quote I got, but it's going to work a lot. It is working a lot better. Um, so that's where the 2 years came into play. So while we're building this from scratch, I'm trying to learn, now I need a CRM, a customer management software to where I can know who my users are, have a way to communicate with them, like the chat bot and things like that. And I'm learning social media, advertising, meta. There's so many things that I've had to spend time learning these past 2 years, and I've just scratched the surface. So I have so much invested in this website. My husband and I, we did not want to take on partners like investors because I don't want someone who's not a horse person to throw money at this and then try to tell me how to change my business plan or how to change my vision because it's not lucrative enough. My goal is to get my investment money back, but it's not at the expense of my vision for Giddyup Getaway. So, it's been a slight struggle for us as far as funding. We have funded it all of ourselves, and we're still here. But that part has been challenging because we both agreed, we don't want to take on any investors because of those reasons that I explained, and we're happy that we didn't. I have had people approach me that want to be investors because they believe in it and they think it's going to do great, but we're still, holding off from taking on any partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And for those that are listening, we haven't even gotten to the practical takeaways. We're still talking about Joni's story, but for listeners, I want you to also hear and be reminded of that. And we talk about here on the podcast of knowing your why, your vision, your heart behind your business, and letting that be the filter for your decisions. Because when you start to see dollar signs and promises and, like growing bigger, faster, always sounds really good in the moment. But if that does not align with the heart and the vision for your business, it's not going to help you in the long term. So I appreciate that example, Joni, of you doing that. Okay, I have some
100%.
I would love to know if you would share, and you've shared one already, like some of the roadblocks in this process. Again, because I know you're this launched, if my notes are right, April 2024. Is that right?
April 1st, 2024. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we're recording this in July. So, you're still in that grassroots
Still a
level, which
newbie.
I
Yes.
love. And I appreciate that you're willing to be on here and still talk to me about these things instead of saying, no, I just started, because everybody starts somewhere and
Mhm.
everybody can learn no matter where you are in the process. I really believe that there's so many things we can learn, even though you quote unquote just started. You've been in it for 2 years as an entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
even before that, as a real estate broker, you're an entrepreneur, even in that. So you have that mindset. But would you share with us some of the things that maybe were challenges that, or maybe you'd say this didn't happen, but were there some challenges that maybe made you question if this was the direction you were supposed to go, or if it was going to work? As she laughs,
Yes.
knowingly laughs.
How many
um,
prayers have I prayed? Lord, guide me, please.
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So if you
absolutely.
share with that, and then maybe kind of how you process that, like the mindset piece of being an entrepreneur and building something from scratch.
100%. So I've already talked about funding it was challenging.
Yeah.
Um, I still have monthly expenses. And the business is not covering its expenses yet. So I still have monthly expenses going on. That's still a challenge. So I am I still have my other company, which a property management company for long-term rentals, which that helps subsidize this business until it gets on its own 2 feet. And then I talked about finding the right people to work with, people that you trust, is super important. And it's honestly very challenging to know who you can trust and who you can't, especially when you're in a business um, that is not your normal wheelhouse. So I have to rely on my faith. I have to rely on word of mouth to help me make the right choices when it comes to those things. I start every day with my quiet time, and keep um I have to keep my priorities straight. So I cannot and I will not let Giddyup Getaway consume my mind, consume all of my time, because I do wear many hats, and Giddyup Getaway is very important to me, but I can't let it be the most important thing every day. And so I'm constantly starting my day by reminding myself, um, this is my priority right now. And I'm not going to check my phone, and I'm not going to check the chat bot because I'm clocked out right now. And I'm going to give this time to the Lord and my relationship with Him, or this time with my family, my children, my husband. My father actually lives with us, so I still have a house full of people that look at me for things like laundry,
Yeah.
you know, or dinner. So that is still a challenge, but I feel like I have a really good grasp on my mental space. I'm not going to let Satan rob me of the the process of getting to where everybody ultimately wants to be, where you're like, "Oh, I made it. I'm so successful." That's a long ways down the road for me, and I'm not going to allow my mind space to keep pushing every day behind just so I can get to the point where, oh, I feel like I made it. I want to enjoy the ride. I
Mhm.
want to
Yeah.
um I want to nurture this time. I want to learn as much as I can, and I'm not trying to rush through the process. Um I don't know how long it's going to take before I can breathe a sigh of relief. And if I don't want to rob myself of enjoying each day of this process. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. For those that are listening that are saying, okay, that's easier said than done, are there some practical things that you have kind of picked up? And one you've already shared, like you're like, I start my day with my priorities. And it
Yes.
sounds like you have some pretty clear boundaries around your time.
Yeah.
I would say that's a very practical thing because even when you say like I'm not going to let this consume my mind, I'm like that's such a good reminder because here's the thing, as a business owner, you got into it because you're excited. Like for those people that are listening, for you, this is your secondary, like you have more than one business that you're running. For
Mhm.
some people listening, that's the case. And for some people, they're like, I've already put all feet in. I've been in it for 5 years. I wake up thinking about it. I go to sleep thinking about it because I'm excited. I love it. But eventually, you have to also protect yourself from burnout because you may not, you love it right now, but you also have other relationships you need to nurture. You have your self care, which I have a podcast that's coming about that. Well, by the time this
Good.
publishes, it'll
Yeah.
have already published. So I'll make sure to link to
Okay.
that in the show notes because that is so important as an entrepreneur. But are there some other practical things, Joni, that you're like, actually, even things that you've learned because you've been an entrepreneur for a while with your broker business, of how you've really protected yourself from that burnout process,
Sure.
even though you're super excited and passionate about what you're doing?
Yeah.
Because there's always endless things. I will say that, like for those listening, and I've learned this myself, like there is always more. There's
Mhm.
always more you could be doing. And so figuring out what you should do, what's the most important in that time. What does that look like?
Absolutely. So I have customer service hours for Giddyup Getaway, and it's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I'm on the East Coast in Central Florida. So I had to extend that for my users in California who are 3 hours behind. I wanted to give them, plenty of time to be able to communicate and get help if they need it. Right now, I'm the only person working customer service. So
Uh-huh.
my hours are 9 to 9. I will have been tempted and I will not log in before 9 o'clock. I literally have an alarm on my phone for 9 a.m. to clock in or to let people know I'm available, and then
Mhm.
9 p.m. to log out. And then I make myself not look at it. If I miss someone from the chat bot, I ask for their email address. And if I miss them, I will email them the next day after 9 o'clock a.m.
Mhm.
So I'm protecting my off time for my mental health, for my relationship with my family. So that is one way that I do it. And then I also have like a quote that I keep telling myself because, everybody has an opinion. And there's people that have run horse hotels for years, and now they're looking at my platform and they've got all kinds of suggestions. And not every suggestion is practical. For example, one person always has people pay half of the total up front. And that's, say, if they don't show up, they forfeit that, a security deposit. It's just not practical for me to set that up that way. The more times we charge someone's credit card, the more fees they have to pay. So I have a lot of like reasons for why things are set up the way they are. Um, but what I have to keep telling myself is perfection is the enemy of progress.
Mm.
So if I keep waiting for everything to be perfect, I wouldn't have launched yet. If I keep waiting for my hair to be perfect, I wouldn't be doing this interview with you. So you have to let the little stuff go, and you have to focus on I'm a big list person. So that's another thing that helps me prioritize my time. Instead of going online and just doing it, I keep a notepad and pen by my bed, and I'll just write it down, and then I can let it fly out of my head and I can get a good night's sleep. So lists help. And then just knowing that it's not going to be perfect. I'm not going to make 100% of everyone like 100% happy. And I understand that. Although I do take people's suggestions into account. And if it makes sense for the majority, then it's something we'll definitely consider like changing in the future. But I just try not to focus on everything being perfect. it has to be real life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do that's going to make everyone feel like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, no matter how hard I try.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's such a good reminder. Such a good reminder for everybody listening. Okay, so I have one more question for you. Um, Pretend like you're hanging out with somebody, sitting at coffee, and they have an idea for a new business in a realm that they don't feel like is their normal fit. So you had this idea, but you're not a website developer and your business was not in the horse world, even though you lived and operated in the horse world. So for those people who are listening who are sitting on some really cool ideas, but they're saying, this is not in my realm of expertise. What are some lessons or some things to know that you would tell them given your experience of the past couple of years?
Hmm. Okay. Well, one thing that has helped me get to the point where I am with Giddyup Getaway is my support system. So I feel like it's really important to have people around you, whether it's your spouse, your children. My dad's still a big part of my life. Um, your friends, your neighbors, church people, whoever it is. I feel like it's very important to have a support system of people who you can bounce ideas off of, who are going to be there to help you whenever you have a failure or you need a redo. Um, Whenever you need some financial support, that's nice, or even financial advice, so a support system is very beneficial. Or even if it's, I need to work for the next 48 hours and kids, I need for you to do the laundry, do your own laundry or cook dinner for the next week or something like that. So support system is huge. I would say do your research. There's so much information available online, whether it's through different Facebook groups, whether it's through other social media platforms, connecting with other people who are in a similar business and doing what we're doing, picking their brain and finding out what are the obstacles that I'm going to come up with that I need to start thinking about now. Um, the other thing that my husband's really good at is putting numbers to a situation. So
Yeah.
he's like, okay, if we spend X amount of money and this is our budget for the website, how many and an average rental with a horse stall and a trailer site, say, is $65. How many of those throughout the USA do we need to
Mhm.
cover our expenses in the next 12 months? So go ahead and hook up with an analytic type personality person, which isn't me, which is my husband, and run those numbers to make sure that you're not going to be surprised at the end and be caught in a situation that you don't want to be in.
Yeah. Oh, that is really good. And I was going to ask you about that earlier. So I'm so glad that you brought that up because that's the thing. Even though you candidly and honestly shared where you guys are at now because you're just starting out, this is not a nonprofit. It's a profit-based business. And your goal is to be profitable. In order to do that, you have to know your numbers and know
Yeah.
what you're headed for. And so for those listening, the same is true for you no matter what your business model is or how long you've been in business. It's never too late to jump in. Get a notepad, a piece of paper. It doesn't even have to be a spreadsheet starting out, but you need to at least have an idea. What are those expenses? What is your income? What is the number you need for the lifestyle that you want for the season of business that you're in? And have that readily available and review it often. I would guess. Are you guys reviewing? Is your husband saying, yeah, and we're going to look at this on a regular basis?
Yes, and I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I just was going through my files and cleaning up my office, and I found my business plan from back in 2003 from my real estate company.
Oh
I
my
still
goodness.
have it. Yes.
Yeah.
And so definitely have a business plan and yes, review it. Look at your goals and make sure you're hitting your goals on an annual basis. That's important. And then if you need to reevaluate your goals, do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are also so good. I really appreciate you sharing um, so much of your story and just I know that people are going to be encouraged and reminded to hold on to their why, hold on to the vision they have for their business, to not be afraid to just start, not hold on perfectionism, but just get it out there. If you're launching those who have offers, we have people that have online courses and memberships or in-person clinics, right? All of those things we think need to be perfect or have the perfect flyer before you can put it out into the world, but it doesn't have to be. You can just start. Is there anything else, Joni, that knowing that my audience is entrepreneurs who are building their business in the horse world, that you think they should know about entrepreneurship in this world of horses that we're blessed to work in?
I would say no matter what business you're in, whether it's equine related or not, I just think stepping outside of your comfort zone, meeting people that are in a similar industry is so important. Making those connections. I absolutely love networking with other equine people, equine business owners, people that are users of the equine businesses, and just learning from them. It's a high energy. Usually everyone's pretty happy that's in the equine business, because you're working right alongside people that love horses. You already have that in common. So I just think stepping out of your comfort zone, making those connections with people, and nurturing those relationships is important. Yeah.
That's a good word. Yeah, those relationships. That's so key. Okay, before we leave, of course, I would love everybody to know where they can go find you and bookmark it and save it so that when they're ready, because I know that everybody listening at some point is traveling for or with their horses. So where can they find you?
Absolutely. So the website is giddyupgetaway.com, and that's GIDDYUP and then getaway. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, the same handle, Getaway or not .com, but I guess it's the @ sign, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You're good. Okay, perfect. And then, of course, I will link to those in the show notes for those of you that are listening and pulling out your phone. You can go to stormlily.com/144 for episode 144, and I will link to everything that you need there on the podcast show notes. All right, Joni, thank you again for your gift of time. I so appreciate it. And for those listening, please send her a note and let her know that you appreciate her as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Denise.
I have a feeling that as you were listening to Joni share her story and the insights and lessons she is learning, that you could see yourself in a part of her journey, whether it's from the idea stage to conception or implementing or hustling, whatever it is, right? I hope that her honesty and her authenticity about what the building process has looked like for her and her husband has both encouraged you and inspired you to keep going. You've heard me say it before, and I know that you and I both know it is true. Building a sustainable horse business is not for the faint of heart, but you are a horse person, and so I know that you don't back away from the hard work that it takes. But what I also hope that you will hear today is that it's a good thing to have a filter of a strong why and a strong desire and dream that you're moving toward that gives you permission to step back when you need it as well. And so I hope that through today, you were also able to hear how important it is to have a goal that you're working towards. I know that Joni and her husband have a goal when it comes to Giddyup Getaway, and that's the filter for their decisions, as you heard her share. And if you're someone who's saying, Denise, I'm not really a goal setter, or, okay, I've heard you talking about goals. I have goals, but I don't really know how to make the things I do on a daily basis in my business connect to the long-term goals that I have. Then I'm so glad you're here because I have a free goal setting cheat sheet that's going to walk you through a very simple process to set goals when it comes to your horse business, but not to just set goals. I want to help you set goals that will be a filter for the decisions that you will make when it comes to marketing your horse business, when it comes to how you spend your time as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a family person, when it comes to who you want to work with, whether it is sponsors or clients or customers or advertisers or where you're going to advertise. All of those things should be connected to the long-term goal you've set for your horse business. So if I'm speaking your language and you're like, Denise, that sounds great. Where do I start? Grab your free guide. Go to stormlily.com/goals at any time and you can grab that there. Or you can head to the show notes at stormlily.com/144 for episode number 144. I'll have that link there. And then, of course, I'll have the links for you to connect with Joni and Giddyup Getaway and start booking your horse trips using that site as well. Now, I'm so grateful, friends, that you are joining me here, and I hope that you are enjoying meeting all of these new friends over these past few weeks that have been on the podcast. I really am enjoying getting to connect with so many different people in different facets of the equine industry who are doing such wonderful things, and they are striving and they are working hard as entrepreneurs and sharing their lessons learned. So stay tuned, because over the next few weeks, I have even more great guest episodes lined up for you. And that being said, if you've met someone here on the podcast that you think one of your friends should meet, if there's been an episode that's been helpful to you, then can I invite you to share that with your horse business friends? Share the podcast, send them the link, tell them where to go, because this is the place they need to be if they want practical and actionable help to market their horse business well. Thank you so much again for being here. I will see you on the next episode. Have an amazing day.